What if her distance isn't rejection but a hidden battle between fear and connection? What if the walls she built weren't meant to shut you out, but to shield herself from herself? And what if the true power isn't found in chasing her, but in mastering your own calm presence? Let's dive deep into the unseen emotional struggles that cause her to pull away, and discover how your steady presence can become the silent force that speaks to her soul. Ever found yourself sitting alone replaying everything in your head, asking if she still cares? Why did she pull away? One moment the connection felt real, effortless even. She opened up. She laughed with you. Maybe even said things that hinted at a future. And then, almost out of nowhere, she started creating distance. Fewer messages, less warmth. You felt the shift, but not the reason. In this video, we're going to unpack the psychology behind why a woman can care deeply and still push you away. We'll explore what her emotional retreat actually means and how your calm presence, not your pursuit, can become the very thing that speaks to her soul. Let's get into it. Number 1, fear of vulnerability. Caring opens the door to pain. And for a woman who has known heartbreak through betrayal, abandonment, or even the quiet ache of being emotionally unseen, keeping that door shut can feel safer than ever risking it again. What feels like connection to you might feel like exposure to her, like standing naked in the very places she spent years covering with armor. Because for the deeply wounded, even the gentlest kind of love can feel like a threat. In her world, love may not feel like a sanctuary. It may feel like a battlefield. The more she feels, the more she fears what losing you could do to her spirit. So instead of drawing closer, she retreats. Not because she wants to lose you, but because she already feels the shadow of that potential loss looming. Distance to her is not rejection, it's preparation. A quiet defense against devastation. Being with a woman who fears vulnerability requires patience but never passivity. It's a dance of presence and restraint. You show her day by day that love can be quiet, that closeness doesn't mean chaos, that being seen doesn't have to end in pain, that your strength lies not in how loud you are, but in how deeply you listen and how calmly you stay. And in that stillness, you offer her something she may never have known. A space where surrender is not collapse, where softness isn't punished, where love asks nothing from her defenses but everything from her freedom. But stepping into that space, that choice is hers. Your role isn't to drag her through the fire. It's to stand like the mountain beside it, firm, unwavering, whole. Let her feel what it's like to be loved without pressure. Let her learn, maybe for the first time, that a man can be both strong and soft, both caring and centered, because in the end, what remains in her memory isn't your pursuit. It's your peace, not your words, but your presence, not the effort, but the energy of a man who didn't flinch when her fear surfaced. A man who stayed stoic, steady, and sovereign. If this spoke to something inside you, sit with it for a moment. Not everything that pulls away is rejecting you. Sometimes it's just protecting itself the only way it knows how. Before we continue, I invite you to reflect. Have you ever mistaken a woman's fear for a lack of care? Have you ever chased when what was truly needed was stillness and space? Leave a comment below to share your thoughts. I read every word, and your reflections add depth to this shared journey. Now, let's move forward into the next truth every grounded man must come to know. Number 2, testing your strength. She might not even realize she's doing it, but sometimes a woman creates distance not to manipulate, but to feel something out, to sense the invisible edges of your presence, to see what you'll do when the warmth between you fades for a moment. Will you chase her into the fog? Will you fall apart in confusion? Or will you stand still, calm, composed, unshaken in who you are? This isn't always a game. More often, it's a reflex born from old wounds, from past experiences where closeness came with cost, where affection was fleeting, where men said all the right things, but collapsed the moment emotional waters got too deep. So now when she pulls away, it's not necessarily to push you out, it's to see if you can stay in without forcing your way forward. And this is where many relationships falter because men misread the space. They rush to fill the silence. They over-pursue. They start scrambling to fix the disconnect, thinking if they say just the right words, everything will go back to how it was. But here's the truth. Your reaction to her distance often speaks louder than anything you could ever say. If you panic, question yourself, or grasp for control, the test answers itself. But if you remain steady, not cold, not withdrawn, just quietly centered, something begins to shift in her. She feels it. That rare energy, that silent confidence, that refusal to be pulled out of alignment by uncertainty. That is power. Not the kind that shouts, but the kind that simply is. You don't need to explain your value. You don't need to perform, prove, or posture. You embody. You remain. You become the message through presence, through restraint, through the quiet dignity of knowing who you are. This is where the Stoic path shines most. Not in dominance, but in dignity. You don't fight her silence with noise. You don't mirror her fear with your own. You don't shrink to gain approval or inflate to force closeness. You show her through unwavering stillness that you are not here to engage in emotional tug-of-war. You're here to lead with stability, not to dance with chaos. And the irony, the more unshaken you remain, the more she begins to trust you. Not because you tried to convince her, but because you didn't. Because in her storm you stayed the shore. Solid, silent, true. And that's the kind of man she remembers. The one who didn't chase her into the noise but stood firm in the quiet, showing her that real strength isn't reactive. It's rooted. It's consistent. It's love without fear. Because love without fear doesn't need to force, it simply waits. And when the time is right, it receives. Number 3, her own inner conflict. She could be torn, caught in the quiet tension between deeply wanting you and silently believing she's not ready, or worse, that she's not worthy. Not enough for something real, something steady. This kind of inner war doesn't always show on the surface. It's not loud. It doesn't always come with tears or dramatic goodbyes. Sometimes it shows up as hesitation, as distance, as mixed signals that leave you wondering what shifted. On one side, she's drawn to you, your presence, your calm, your groundedness. On the other, she's haunted by the echoes of past wounds. Old stories that tell her love comes with pain. That if she opens up, she'll lose herself. That if someone sees all of her messiness, her doubts, her fears, they'll eventually walk away. So instead of stepping in, she steps back. What is your role? To hold your frame, to stay rooted, to not let her inner chaos unravel your sense of self. Her confusion is not a measure of your worth. Her distance is not a verdict on your value. As Epictetus taught, it's not what happens to you, but how you react to it that matters. And this is where your strength gets tested. Not in pursuit, but in presence, you remain calm, not detached, not cold, just unmoved by the emotional tide. Not because you don't care, but because you do deeply enough to know that real love doesn't chase confusion. It stands still and lets clarity find its way. In that stillness, something profound happens. She begins to see herself more clearly, not through pressure, not through persuasion, but through contrast. Your calm becomes a mirror to her chaos. Your quiet presence exposes the noise within her, and she starts to ask herself the deeper questions. Why am I afraid of something stable? Why does this feel foreign? Why is peace more frightening than pain? That's the moment growth begins, not because you pulled her there, but because you let her see it for herself. You didn't become another variable in her emotional equation. You became the constant, and that matters. So, don't underestimate the power of your stillness. In a world full of noise, it might be the loudest thing she hears. If this message speaks to something you've lived through or are living through now, pause here. Not every pullback is rejection. Sometimes it's her way of protecting something she hasn't fully healed. And your role isn't to chase what's uncertain, but to remain certain within yourself. Let that be your strength. Let that be your edge. If this part moved you, hit the like button. It helps spread the message, and if you're feeling it, drop a comment sharing your experience or just type "stillness is louder than words." I'll be reading. Now, let's move forward, because the next truth will challenge how you see emotional connection and power. Number 4, misreading your energy. If you've been too available, too eager, or lacking clear direction, she may misread that energy. Not as love, not as devotion, but as neediness. And here's the hard truth. What you meant as affection, she might have felt as pressure. What you thought showed commitment, she could have seen as dependence. Attraction isn't just about how much you give, it's about the energy with which you give it. It's about how you carry yourself while giving it. You see, when a man centers his entire emotional rhythm around a woman, waiting anxiously for her replies, adjusting his mood based on her signals, constantly offering his presence without her ever needing to ask, it doesn't deepen connection, it drains it. It doesn't communicate love, it communicates a void. It suggests that his emotional balance is not self-generated, but outsourced, tethered to someone else's attention. That to someone who's grounded isn't comforting. It's unsettling because it shows a lack of inner stillness, a lack of deeper purpose, a disconnection from self. And love cannot thrive in a space where one person is orbiting and the other is anchoring. As Marcus Aurelius once said, the happiness of your life depends upon the quality of your thoughts. And if your thoughts are constantly consumed by how can I get her attention instead of how can I stay on my path, then your energy begins to shift subtly but powerfully. It moves from grounded to grasping, from magnetic to dependent. And women feel that energetically, instinctively. But this doesn't mean you should become distant or play games. It doesn't mean you shut down your heart or pretend not to care. What it means is that you return to yourself. You move with intention, not reaction. You offer love, but you never abandon your center to do it. Because when your energy is anchored in something deeper, something beyond her, a purpose, a mission, a path that you are walking with quiet confidence, she feels that. She sees it in your eyes, hears it in your voice, senses it in your presence. And here's the beautiful paradox. When you're no longer trying to be chosen, when you stop making the relationship the center of your universe, you become the kind of man who is chosen. Not because of a performance, but because of a presence, because you're not there just to be needed. You're there to lead, not with dominance, but with clarity, not with control, but with conviction. And that shift, that grounded masculine presence, it speaks louder than words ever could. That's when the dynamic changes. That's when she begins to see you not as a man who's hoping to be enough, but as a man who already is. Number 5, she needed to regain control. Sometimes when a woman feels herself becoming too emotionally dependent, too affected by your presence, too invested in your responses, she will pull back. Not because she stopped caring, but because she started feeling out of control. The energy she once freely gave may now feel like a weight she needs to manage. For some women, emotional vulnerability can feel like losing power. The fear of needing someone too much, of losing themselves in the intensity of connection, can be overwhelming. And so the instinct is to retreat, to distance herself in order to regain balance, to regain herself. That distance may not always seem logical. You may have thought things were progressing smoothly. Deep conversations, shared laughter, an intimacy that felt so real, so effortless. And yet suddenly her energy shifts. She becomes colder, more distant. Her responses are shorter. Her availability decreases. At first, you might wonder what you did wrong. But the truth is, it's not about you at all. It's about how she's feeling within herself. In her mind, pulling away is a self-preservation tactic. It's a way for her to reclaim control over her emotions before they spiral too far, too fast. As Seneca once wrote, "We are more often frightened than hurt, and we suffer more from imagination than from reality." In this moment, emotional discipline means not reacting to her pullback with fear or insecurity. You don't panic, beg, or chase after clarity. You simply hold your frame. You respect her space, not to manipulate or test her, but to allow her the room she needs to recalibrate. And here's where the true power of this detachment shows itself. When you respect her pullback without bitterness or confusion, you send a powerful message. You communicate without words. I don't need to control your emotions to stay grounded in mine. This is the core of emotional mastery. It's not about pushing or pulling, it's about being. And that level of composure, that quiet confidence, becomes unforgettable. In a world where so many are quick to react, your calm presence serves as a quiet but powerful contrast. It reminds her that real strength isn't about dominating situations or people. It's about staying composed no matter what. So, let her recalibrate. Let her feel the difference between someone who pressures her emotions and someone who simply is. Because when she realizes that your connection didn't make her lose control but actually gave her room to breathe, she may just come back, not out of fear or guilt, but from a place of trust. Trust in your presence. Trust in your emotional strength. Trust in the space you gave her to be herself without the weight of expectation or need. Take a breath with that. It's not easy to hold steady when someone pulls away, especially when everything seemed to be going so well. But that's exactly where your growth is tested. Can you stay calm without closure? Can you remain grounded without guarantees? That's the kind of strength most never develop. So before we dive into the next insight, I want you to reflect. Have you ever mistaken her emotional retreat as rejection when it was really just her fear of losing control? If so, drop a comment below and share your thoughts, or simply type this: "Her pullback didn't shake me, it shaped me." Your words might be exactly what someone else needs to see. Let's move forward. Number 6, she felt unseen. Here's the paradox that confuses many men. You were there, you showed up, you called, you stayed consistent, you thought you were doing everything right. Yet somehow she still felt unseen. How could that be? Because presence isn't just about being physically available. It's emotional, energetic, attuned. You might have been present in body, But were you truly connected in spirit? Were you really listening to her words or just waiting for your turn to respond? Were you offering solutions when she needed empathy? Or was your desire to fix overshadowing her need to be heard? Were you showing love the way you express it or the way she receives it? Sometimes a woman pulls away not because you weren't around, but because despite your presence, she still felt invisible. Emotional invisibility is a subtle, insidious thing. It's not about lack of attention, it's the ache of not being truly felt. It's when she opens her heart and you either don't notice or gloss over her feelings. It's when you give her your time, but not your full presence. She feels like she's speaking to a version of you that's physically there, but emotionally absent. The Stoic man, however, listens not to fix, not to perform, not to defend, but simply to understand. His focus isn't on offering immediate solutions or trying to make things better. He doesn't interrupt. He doesn't rush to make it about him. He listens deeply. He notices the shift in her tone, the sigh between her words, the silence that says more than any argument ever could. He understands that emotions often don't need fixing. They need to be witnessed, validated, and most importantly, he doesn't judge. As Marcus Aurelius wrote, "If someone is able to show me that what I think or do is not right, I will happily change, for I seek the truth." That's what she craves. Not a perfect man, but a present one. A man who is grounded enough to hold space for her truth even when it doesn't align with his. She doesn't need you to have all the answers. She needs to know that you can hear her, see her, and meet her where she is, not where you think she should be. If she pulled away, it might not have been because she stopped caring. It could have been because she didn't feel fully met. She didn't feel that quiet, steadfast presence that can anchor her when everything else feels uncertain. But if you can reflect honestly without defensiveness or ego and grow from that space, you offer her something rare, a connection that isn't about trying to be perfect or right, but about being real, present, and open. You become a man who doesn't just stand beside her, but truly sees her, and over time, that kind of presence, steadfast, compassionate, and without the need for validation, draws her back. Not through pressure, not through force, but through the pull of being truly understood. And that, my friend, is a presence that has the power to transform the dynamic of any relationship. Number 7, the illusion of independence. She might believe that needing someone makes her weak, that to care deeply is to surrender control. So even if she feels the connection, even if she misses you, she distances herself, not because she doesn't value you, but because she's trying to protect the image she holds of herself, strong, unbothered, self-sufficient. This belief isn't an isolated thought. It's a defense mechanism that many adopt after being let down or after being told that vulnerability is a flaw. The idea of emotional dependence becomes threatening, and so she convinces herself that distance equals strength. That detachment means power, but that's an illusion. A mask worn to hide the very human desire to be seen, to be held, and to be loved without fear. Beneath the layers of self-sufficiency lies the same longing for intimacy and emotional connection that everyone craves, though many choose to bury it in fear of appearing weak. And this is where your stillness becomes her contrast. While she retreats into the false sense of independence, trying to control what she feels by suppressing it, you remain unmoved, not cold, not distant, just centered. Your presence doesn't chase validation. It doesn't beg for her to choose you. You are the anchor, not the storm. Like Epictetus taught, freedom is the only worthy goal in life. It is won by disregarding things that lie beyond our control. This is the essence of Stoic philosophy, recognizing that we cannot control others, nor should we try. The only thing we can truly control is our response. And a true Stoic response is always grounded and calm. So when she steps back, you don't scramble. You don't try to force closeness or make her feel guilty for needing space. Instead, you respect her illusion of independence while remaining rooted in your truth. You continue to walk your path grounded in the certainty that your worth does not depend on her closeness. You show that strength isn't proven by how loudly you declare your independence. It's shown in how peacefully you coexist with connection. It's in the quiet acceptance of what is, and the faith that when the time is right, she'll be drawn back by the very strength you've embodied all along. And when life inevitably shakes her, when the chaos creeps in and the distractions fade, she'll remember your energy, quiet, unshaken, real. Not because you needed her to feel whole, but because you already were. Your sense of self doesn't waver based on her presence or absence. You are the calm that didn't require a storm to prove it existed. That's the kind of presence that doesn't fade. It lingers. And in time, it humbles the illusion she once clung to. The false idea that strength is about detachment and control. She'll begin to see that true strength lies in the quiet, grounded presence of a man who doesn't need anyone to complete him. And that's what draws her back. Not through pressure or force, but through the undeniable pull of someone who is fully at peace with who they are. Number 8. The conflict between logic and emotion. She may care about you genuinely. She may think about you, miss you, even admire your presence in her life. But that doesn't mean her actions will always reflect that care. Why? Because emotions don't operate on logic. She might tell herself you're the right person, that the connection is real, yet still pull away, act distant, or even push you out completely. It's not about the absence of feeling. It's about the chaos of it. This internal conflict can be deeply frustrating to witness. One moment she's warm, open, and affectionate. The next, cold, distant, and withdrawn. You're left wondering, how can someone who clearly cares act like this? But the answer lies in understanding the emotional turbulence she's navigating. Her heart might crave connection, but her fears, past wounds, insecurities, and emotional wiring may be at odds with that desire. In that clash between what she feels and what she believes, logic loses. Emotion takes the wheel. The truth is, emotional complexity isn't linear. It's messy, unpredictable, and often contradictory. She might pull away because she's afraid of losing herself in the connection. She may retreat to protect a part of her heart that has been hurt before, or because the vulnerability of closeness triggers feelings of weakness. Her emotions are not easily understood even by her. That's where your response becomes key. And here's where your power lies. You don't wrestle with contradictions. You don't try to make sense of every mixed signal. You don't chase clarity in someone who hasn't found it within themselves. Instead, you stay centered in your own clarity, calm, grounded, purposeful, as Marcus Aurelius wrote. If you are distressed by anything external, the pain is not due to the thing itself, but to your estimate of it. So rather than reacting with confusion, frustration, or self-doubt, you observe. You don't seek to change her or fix her emotional state. You respond only when necessary and always from a place of inner stability. You don't let her chaos become your chaos. You don't let her mixed signals shake your values, alter your self-perception, or pull you off your path. In doing so, you don't just protect your peace. You offer her a glimpse of what it means to be truly balanced. A man who stands firm in his own identity, even when the world around him is in flux. A man whose clarity is not dependent on the fluctuating emotions of others, but rooted in his own sense of purpose and self-worth. And one day, when she's ready to stop battling her own contradictions, she'll remember the one person who never made her emotional confusion feel like a burden. The one who remained whole even when everything around him shifted. The one who gave her the space to find herself without judgment, without pressure, just presence. And when that moment comes, she'll realize that your stillness was the only thing that made sense in a world full of emotional chaos. Number 9, she expected you to prove something. Sometimes her distance isn't meant to end things, it's meant to test them. A subtle emotional provocation. If I pull away, will he chase? Will he fight for me? Will he prove I'm worth it? It's not always a conscious manipulation, but it's a real test of your emotional stability. In moments of uncertainty, some women will withdraw not to leave you, but to see how you respond. And ironically, the very reaction she might expect, the pleading, the chasing, the emotional unraveling, is the one that causes her to lose respect and trust in the connection. You see, when she pulls back, what she's really asking is, are you centered enough to stand still, or will you crumble the moment I step back? And that's where your strength is revealed, not in grand gestures or dramatic declarations, but in your calm refusal to betray your self-worth in order to prove your value. You don't beg. You don't perform. You don't seek to fulfill her emotional test by losing yourself in the process. As Epictetus wisely put it, it's not things themselves that disturb us, but our judgment about them. Her pushback doesn't mean you're not valuable. It doesn't mean the connection was false. It simply means she is navigating her own emotions, and her distance is more about her internal struggles than your worth. The only thing that matters is how you choose to interpret it, and more importantly, how you respond. Your response, its quiet strength. It's not proving your worth through pursuit, it's expressing it through presence. You don't react to her test with panic or desperation. You don't scramble for her approval or chase her affection. Instead, you pass the test by simply continuing your journey, clear, focused, and at peace with yourself. You stay grounded in your own purpose, knowing that your worth is inherent, not contingent on her approval. Because in the end, what truly shifts her perception isn't your fight for her attention. It's your refusal to abandon your center just to earn it. When you remain true to yourself, when you hold your peace in the face of emotional pushback, you demonstrate something far more valuable than attention. You demonstrate integrity. You show that your sense of self-worth doesn't come from external validation, but from a deep inner knowing that you are already whole. And when she realizes you didn't need to prove anything, that your very existence is already proof of your value, that's when she begins to see you in a completely different light. Not as someone who is seeking her validation, but as someone whose calm, grounded presence is something worth cherishing. That's when she'll realize that the true test wasn't about her pulling away. It was about how you remained unwavering in your sense of self when she did. And that's when the connection deepens, not through pursuit, but through a mutual understanding of what it means to respect and honor each other's space and autonomy. In conclusion, understanding why someone you care deeply about might pull away isn't just about analyzing their behavior. It's about mastering your own emotional responses. We've unpacked the complexities behind her retreat, explored the fear of vulnerability, emotional overload, inner conflicts, and the subtle tests hidden behind distance. At the heart of this discussion lies a crucial Stoic lesson. True strength doesn't chase or panic. It stands firm, grounded, and self-assured. Remember, her pulling away often has less to do with your worth and far more with her internal world, her fears, past wounds, and emotional challenges. Your calm, centered response in these moments doesn't just protect your emotional well-being. It also creates the safe space she might need to return if that's what's meant to be. The Stoic path teaches us not to react impulsively, but to remain steady and composed, recognizing that our self-worth isn't defined by someone else's actions or emotions. Take this lesson forward. Stay true to yourself. Cultivate emotional clarity and always respond from a place of strength, not desperation. Love without dignity is not love worth pursuing, but love rooted in mutual respect and emotional mastery. That is truly powerful. If this video resonated with you, don't forget to hit that like button. It helps more people find this important message. Leave a comment sharing your thoughts. Which of these insights impacted you the most? How have you handled situations like this in your own life? I'd love to hear your experiences. And make sure to check out the recommended videos on your screen right now, diving deeper into Stoic wisdom and relationship dynamics. Thank you for watching. Stay grounded, and I'll see you in the next one.